Discover the incredible moment a brave girl transformed the mute son of a mafia boss with sign language. Emily's heart raced as she stood in the bustling community center, the air thick with tension. Whispers floated around her, swirling like a storm. The Giovannis, they murmured, eyes flicking to a solitary figure across the room. Marco. Victor Giovanni's mute son sat cloaked in isolation, shunned and silent amidst a chorus of judgment. Emily felt an indescribable pull toward him, a flicker of empathy igniting her desire to reach out, but the weight of her father's warnings echoed in her mind. Stay away from trouble, Em, he always said, the line between right and wrong drawn with care. Still, she couldn't shake the image of Marco's soft brown eyes, longing for connection, shadowed by his father's notoriety. The dilemma churned within her, a growing heartache. How could she, the daughter of a struggling auto shop owner, risk everything by reaching for a boy branded as the monster's son? What if she became a target herself for even daring to look his way? The internal conflict clawed at her. Each day of watching from afar felt like a bell tolling, urging her to act. Days slipped into weeks. Emily caught glimpses of Marco at school, each silent class a reminder of her burgeoning attraction, an unsecret she couldn't express. The library became her sanctuary, a space where ideas bubbled and thoughts collided. The very air vibrated with possibility. And then came that fateful day. She braved the silence, her fingers trembling as she invited Marco to help restore the playground. Please, she dared, aware of how nuts her heart had become. To her surprise, his eyes lit up, an unfiltered joy illuminating his face. Their hands spoke, bridging the void of silence with the fluid motion of sign language, his captivating stories materializing in the air between them. But soon enough, she felt the weight of the world settling in. Her father's disapproving glances, the whispers of classmates, each interaction felt like gasoline, quickening the flames of tension that simmered beneath her skin. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then the storm hit. That fateful evening, Emily and Marco were caught between violent factions, gang members erupting into chaos, danger igniting the air like an electric current. She felt Marco's hand tighten around her wrist, eyes wide with panic as he tried to pull her to safety. But she froze, a part of her refusing to leave him behind. Uncertainty gripped her heart, family loyalty or this undeniable connection with a boy seen as an enemy? The raw fear in Marco's expression shattered her resolve. And she saw clearly in that moment the innocence wrapped in blanket labeling, tangled in a struggle they never asked for. Gazes shifted to her, she could feel judgment radiating like waves against her back. Laughter between children, supplication of everyday life turned into a distant memory as the reality of association hung thick in the air. Here they stood, the weight of centuries of blood ties clashing against the tender threads of their newfound friendship. She inhaled sharply, racing against the tide of chaos swirling just beyond their sheltering embrace. With sirens wailing in the distance, illuminating the fear etched in their faces, Emily faced an insurmountable truth. She must choose. Would she cling to the boy who saw her, who understood her, or safeguard the life she built out of respect for her father's warnings? The world around her threatened to shatter as she hesitated, the impossible choice hanging delicately in the balance. And all the while, Marco's eyes spoke louder than words ever could, echoing the mounting question, could their bond endure the storm ahead? Their surroundings exploded into chaos as men shouted, guns drew, and the world Emily knew began to unravel in front of her. She felt the pulse of adrenaline surge through her veins, matching the rising tension in the air. Her senses sharpened, every detail magnified in the throes of fear. The glint of metal, the frenzied voices, the shrill sirens closing in like hungry wolves. In this moment of madness, Emily's internal battle crystallized. Could she prioritize self-preservation over the connection forged in silence? Marco's grip on her wrist tightened, a silent plea that ignited something deep within her. She was no longer simply the auto shop owner's daughter, she had the power to act, to break boundaries dictated by blood and fear. "Marco, we need to move. Now," she urged, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The uncertainty that had lingered there felt irrational. The instinct to protect and connect overwhelmed the lessons ingrained by fear. In that instance, she saw what others did not, a chance for both of them, a glimpse of a future where they could exist beyond the restraints of their family's legacies. She pulled him toward the back exit of the building, heart thumping like a drum against her ribcage. Chaos swirled outside, but this time it felt different, it was layered with purpose. She was no longer a passive observer, she moved through the unfolding violence with intention, her mind clicking into gear. The playground they had spoken of restoring suddenly transformed into a metaphor for their lives, a place of potential, now marred by the encroaching darkness. Once outside, the chaos shifted. Emily didn't just see Marco as the mute son of a mafia boss. He was Marco, a boy who had been searching for connection the same way she had fought against isolation. They darted into an alley, pressing against a wall, breathless as the world continued to fold in on itself. Marco turned to her, eyes wide with confusion and gratitude, the fear dissipating but his tension still palpable. "What do we do next?" His expression spoke volumes about his mixture of hope and uncertainty. He had put his trust in her, and the weight of that choice settled heavily upon her shoulders. The grip of fear tugged at her thoughts momentarily, but then she remembered the skills she'd been cultivating. Her understanding of sign language had become more than just a tool, it was a bridge to meaningful communication. A way to carve their separate paths into a shared narrative. "We can't let them tear us apart. They don't get to decide our future." Marco's resolve mirrored her own growing strength, she could see it shining in his eyes. They crafted a plan on the fly, a dance of gestures and expressions that betrayed their fledgling alliance. The world around them faded, all that existed was the urgency of survival and their intertwined dreams, searching for freedom from the shackles of family expectation. As they broke free from the alley and melted into the darkness of night, a surge of determination coursed through Emily. Symbolic of a threshold crossed, the choice to act, her mind swirled with questions about loyalty, identity, and forging connections beyond circumstances. The path ahead felt treacherous and unknown, but the energy tethering her to Marco fueled her spirit. Despite the stakes, she couldn't shake the sense that she was evolving, growing beyond the shadows that had previously obscured her vision. In the distance, the cacophony faded to an echo, leaving her with one pressing thought: was she truly ready to confront the world that had dictated her actions thus far? The weight of the past fed her resolve, and this was only the beginning. But just then, a figure stepped from the shadows, creating a palpable tension in the air. "Where do you think you're going?" A voice cut through the silence, harsh and challenging. Emily's heart sank, the encounter was approaching, and she knew instinctively that the time had come to face not only the chaos outside but also the demons within. Emily's instinct screamed for her to flee, but the presence looming before them cut through the noise of the night with razor-sharp clarity. In that fleeting moment, she realized the weight of her choices, the weight of her newfound connection with Marco. The figure blocking their escape wasn't just another threat, it was a reminder of the realities they had begun to defy. "Let her go." Marco's voice trembled just a fraction, but the firmness of his tone surprised even him, as if realizing he had something worth protecting. Emily felt the heat of his determination anchor her, grounding her swirling thoughts. "Step aside, Marco. This doesn't concern you," the voice taunted, revealing itself as one of the men from the chaos. He stood there, a silhouette of confidence edged with menace, as he scanned the alley. That recognition sparked a flicker of alarm within her. This was no mere low-level thug, he held power, woven into the violence that dictated their lives. "Doesn't it?" Emily stepped forward, placing herself between Marco and the looming threat. Her heart raced, but the resolve building inside her swallowed the fear. "We're done letting others decide what concerns us." The words tasted bold on her tongue, a declaration she had never thought possible. The man raised an eyebrow, surprised by her audacity, a dark amusement playing on his lips. "You think you're in control here? You're just the shop owner's daughter. You don't know what you're getting into." With every word, Emily felt the iron grip of her circumstances tighten, yet in that tension, she was confronted by an unexpected truth: her identity extended far beyond her family's shadow. She had forged an identity defined by courage, resilience, and an emergent connection to someone who understood her struggle uniquely. "Maybe you're right," she replied, injecting her voice with conviction, "but I'm choosing to carve a path forward, and you can't stop that." There was a tense silence, as if the world paused to reflect the weight of her statement. The man took a step back, uncertainty flickering briefly in his eyes. It fueled her mind. Was this a deflection, a strategy to intimidate, or a genuine response? Marco, emboldened by her risk, reached out and captured her hand in his, squeezing it firmly. The contact ignited a surge of shared adrenaline, a promise that they were in this together. It shifted the tide momentarily. "Let us go, Marco," Emily urged, her voice soft but insistent. She felt liberated from the chains of fear that had dictated her previous actions. They turned, ready to sprint into the night, when the man's voice boomed after them. "Run if you wish, but you can't escape what you are. Family will always find you." A shiver skated down Emily's spine, the threat laced with future implications. As they dashed out of the alley and into the welcoming embrace of darkness, she struggled to process what had just occurred. The chase wasn't merely physical, it was a revelation, a core truth about herself laid bare. What did family mean now? Were her new ties stronger than the inherited ones that threatened to entrap her? With every step, Emily embraced the evolving clarity around her identity, balancing the fight against her past with the determination to shape her own future. "Where do we go now?" Marco's eyes flared with urgency, their connection deepening as they faced the reality of their choices. "I know a place. We need to regroup, think things through," she replied, though doubts still curled ominously at the edges of her mind. Steeling herself, Emily steered them down an unfamiliar path, the adrenaline morphing into a keen sense of purpose. But with every passing moment, the shadows of their past loomed larger, and she couldn't shake the unease gnawing at her. The real battle ahead wasn't just against the external forces that sought to tear them apart, it was against the legacies that sought to dictate who she was to become. That challenge weighed heavily on her, pressing down until one undefined thought sharpened her focus: they might be in control now, but she would soon face not only the enforcers of her fate but the echoes of her lineage. As the night stretched on, a decision loomed on the horizon, one that would determine if she could break away permanently from the ties that bound her. Would the depths of loyalty tested by blood be enough to forge her own destiny, or would she be dragged back into the darkness she sought to escape? The end of their fleeting sanctuary greeted them, and Emily felt the pulse of the future thumping just ahead, waiting to be seized or surrendered. The dimly lit corner of the cafe felt like a sanctuary, a temporary refuge from the chaos that threatened to swallow them whole. As they slid into a booth in the far back, Emily's heart pounded not just from peril but from newfound awareness. The muted clinks of coffee mugs and the hushed conversations of fellow patrons created a backdrop of normalcy that contrasted sharply with the turmoil outside. "Are we safe here?" Marco asked, his brow furrowed with worry. The weight of their last encounter loomed over them both, a specter of what could come next. "For now," Emily replied, her voice steadier than she felt. She could hear her own thoughts racing, trying to map out their next steps. The threat still lingered, a stubborn remnant of family connections entwined, endangered. In the quiet moments, Emily questioned her own motivations. Why had she stepped up to confront that figure? Was it sheer desperation, or had she tapped into a wellspring of courage she never knew existed? The ownership of her identity felt both exhilarating and terrifying. It was a dichotomy she hadn't anticipated, and it was thrusting her into an uncomfortable yet compelling growth. She started, but the rush of thoughts swallowed her voice. Images of the man's mocking face flickered in her mind. In that moment, Emily realized this was bigger than just a confrontation. It was about a shift within her, a redefinition of self. "What do you think we should do next?" Marco's question snapped her from her reverie. She could see a vulnerability in his eyes, one that mirrored her own uncertainty. The stakes had escalated, and they needed a plan, not just an escape. We have to find a way to break free from whatever grip my family has on us. I can't let that man's words dictate my life, she declared, surprising even herself with the heat of her conviction. Silently, she assessed their circumstances. They were up against something vastly larger than themselves, and while street smarts and quick thinking had served her well thus far, she recognized that she needed to cultivate a broader toolkit. If she were to navigate their new reality, it would require not just escape but strategic movement. Marco, we need to learn who our enemies are. Not just those in the shadows, but also what resources we have. What skills I can leverage, what allies we can find. The vigor in her voice lit a spark in his eyes. He nodded slowly, absorbing her words. So, more than just running, we need to play this smart. Exactly. We can't be just survivors, we need to become players in this game, Emily replied, a surge of determination igniting her spirit. As they discussed potential strategies, local contacts, pathways to leverage Emily's connections, even potential allies who might understand their plight, a sense of purpose washed over her. Each word exchanged solidified their bond, transforming fear into a core of resilience. She had spent too long being molded by her circumstances. Now it felt like she was finally shaping her own narrative. First, we need information. I have a friend who might help us, someone who knows the streets well, Marco said, his determination matching her own. Then we should go now, she urged, the urgency in her blood kicking into high gear. Stepping out of the cafe, the world felt different. The air was thick with the scent of impending rain, but it also carried a promise of change. Emily realized that while the shadows of her past loomed large, the choices she made from here on out would cast their own light. But as they moved forward, an unease settled back in. What if her family came looking? The implications of her defiance weighed heavily, growing into a cautionary specter within her thoughts. Just remember, Emily said, her heart pounding with an unsettling mix of excitement and dread, every step we take could lead to the confrontation we've been avoiding. With every stride, they moved farther from their old selves and closer to an unknown, a confrontation that promised to collide with the truth of her lineage, an inevitable reckoning with the legacy she was determined to redefine. And as they rounded a corner, a chilling thought gripped her. What if facing her family was the only way to fully become who she was meant to be? The next steps loomed with uncertainty, but there was no turning back. The clock was ticking, and soon, the time would come to face her past head-on, drawing her into a conflict that would define her future. The streets pulsed with muted intensity, shadows flickering beneath the overcast sky as Emily and Marco pressed forward. Each heartbeat echoed louder than the last, a reminder of their shared commitment to unraveling the ties that bound them to her past. The adrenaline coursed through her veins, pushing Emily beyond the confines of her previous self. She was ready to confront whatever lay ahead, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically. "Who is this friend of yours?" she asked, trying to steer her racing thoughts towards practical matters. She needed to anchor herself in tangible goals, not let her fears cascade unchecked. "His name is Leo. He is connected with some low-level street facilitators. He knows the lay of the land better than anyone else I know." "Could be useful," Marco replied. His confidence in Leo seemed to ignite a spark of optimism within her, a reminder that they weren't entirely alone in this fight. "We can't afford to take any chances," she said, her voice steadying as determination gripped her again. "I'll have to keep my wits about me. Leo needs to understand what we're asking. Then let us make sure we're prepared. If this turns into something bigger, we need all angles covered," Marco added, his brow furrowed in concentration. The breeze swirled dry leaves at their feet, enveloping them in a moment of solemnity. Emily looked over at Marco, realizing that while he had been her support, she needed to be strong for both of them. She seized the moment to reflect on the frequent undercurrents of fear and uncertainty that had accompanied them up until now. With a newfound resolve, she asked herself, how could she turn her vulnerabilities into strengths? What experiences had forged her into the person she was today? It was time to repurpose her family's history, no longer a weight, but a lesson in resilience and wisdom. As they approached a small building with graffiti-stained walls, Emily's heart raced. This was where Leo could be found, a crossroads between her past and a burgeoning future that she hoped lay before her. She sensed the walls of the building held stories, secrets, and potentially, solutions to reclaiming her agency. Inside, the dim lighting and lingering scent of strong coffee created an ambience heavy with unspoken words. The clamor of everyday life faded into a soft hum as they scanned the room. When their eyes settled on Leo, a wiry figure with tousled hair and a layered jacket, Emily felt a flicker of hope wash over her again. Could this be the connection that she needed to make a viable plan? As they approached, a piercingly gray gaze lifted to meet hers. Emily remained composed, reminded of the confidence she had built just hours before. She had fought against her family's narrative, and now she was ready to fight for herself. "Leo?" she began, her voice piercing through the thick air. "Yeah?" he answered, a hint of curiosity threading his tone. "I hear you know things about the city and well, about families like mine." "We need to talk," she said, striving to keep her tone steady, but unable to mask the weight of urgency rather than excitement or recognition. A shrewd discernment crossed Leo's face. "What's your game?" His eyes shifted between her and Marco, calculating. Emily's heart thumped in her chest. This was a crucial moment, a chance to carve out her path. "I need to know my enemies. And I can't do it alone." As Leo leaned back, an inscrutable expression on his face, Emily felt a wave of daring rise within her. Even if this moment led to unforeseen consequences, she was no longer the girl shaped by fear or familial obligation. She was on the precipice of growth, ready to defy her legacy. "Tell me what you know, Leo." The words tumbled out, laced with a clarity she had never known she possessed, but as the conversation began to unfold, a chill crept over her, a dawning suspicion settling heavily in her mind. What if Leo was more entrenched in her family's affairs than she realized? With each answer he gave, would she be further empowering the very adversaries she was trying to escape? And at that moment, the world felt suspended. A crossroads lay before her, fraught with uncertainty and danger. She could almost hear the echoes of her family calling, warnings wrapped in long-standing loyalty. Could she defy them without losing herself entirely? Just then, as Leo glanced sideways towards a group of men at the far table, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something monumental was about to shift. Was she stepping into a far darker game than she had anticipated? The pulse of fate began to quicken as she braced for what revelations would turn this fragile balance into a volatile confrontation. The time was near for her to choose. Would she dare navigate this intricate web of alliances and enemies? Would she face the reckoning her lineage demanded, or slip away into the shadows of her family's heritage once more? The lines were drawn, and the next move was anything but clear. The conversation unfolded like a cautious dance, each word treading on fragile ground. Emily felt the walls closing in around her, every moment stretched into an eternity as her instincts screamed for clarity. Leo's calculating gaze unnerved her, yet it also ignited an unfamiliar heat, the thrill of stepping into uncharted territory. "What exactly do you want to know?" Leo asked, shifting his weight and folding his arms. His skepticism was palpable, and it mirrored the fear swirling in Emily's chest. She took a deep breath, feeling Marco's reassuring presence beside her, grounding her as she gathered her thoughts. "I need to understand the players involved in the dealings that intersect with my family," she began carefully, conscious of how easily misinformation could lead her astray. "What are their motivations? Who should we be wary of?" Leo leaned back further, his expression stern. "You're treading dangerous waters, Emily. Family matters can get messy. You think you're ready for this?" The question hung heavy, a challenge that cut through her bravado. She took another breath, deeper this time, using the air filling her lungs to fuel her transformation. It wasn't just about her family's legacy, it was about her own identity. "I've spent too long being defined by what they wanted me to be," she replied, voice unwavering. "I want to reclaim my narrative." The gravity of her statement shifted the mood in the room. Leo observed her intently, the skepticism in his eyes waning for a flicker of something else, curiosity, perhaps. "All right, I'll give you a taste." He paused and scanned the cafe, ensuring the coast was clear before continuing. "There is a hierarchy in this world, and it's built on fear and obligation. Your family's name still commands respect in certain circles, but that can flip into vulnerability depending on how your next steps are perceived. As he spoke, Emily's mind raced through the implications. The pathway was murky at best, riddled with treachery. Each detail unraveled threads leading to her past, entangling her with potential threats, but equally presenting opportunities she had never accounted for. What could she uncover from the very chaos her family presented? What should I be watching for? She pressed, her curiosity consuming her. Leo leaned in slightly, a hint of intrigue coloring his expression. Chances are the ones closest to you, those you trust, might just turn out to be the very threat you're afraid of. Truth is a currency here, and everyone has their price. The starkness of his warning sent a chill down her spine. It resonated with the shadows lurking within her family's history, the betrayals, the alliances, all forged on a foundation of duplicity. Suddenly, she felt exposed, an unwitting pawn in a game she barely understood. Now wasn't just about finding what lay beneath the surface, it was about the courage to redefine her role in this narrative. She had spent her life feeling simmering resentment towards the ties that bound her. But in that moment, beneath Leo's penetrating gaze, she felt potential shifting within her. Perhaps understanding didn't come only from external control but from embracing her autonomy. What if I want to disrupt the game entirely? Emily's challenge hung there like a dare. Leo raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Then we're talking strategy. You need allies, people who can help you navigate what lies ahead. But let me make one thing clear, the deeper you go, the harder it becomes to return. Are you ready for that? Uncertainty clawed at her resolve, yet Emily met his gaze head-on. I'm ready to make my own choices, she affirmed, her voice a newfound artillery. I can't let fear dictate my life anymore. As the air between them thrummed with electricity, her internal mantra solidified. Emily was on the brink of a reckoning, but the stakes were higher than she'd imagined. What could she learn about herself by engaging directly with danger, not just skirting its edges? What could she sacrifice to unearth the truth? With each moment, she felt far more than mere intimidation. She felt the bravery enveloping her like a protective shield. Decisions loomed ahead, and she could either tiptoe into them or charge forward, unyielding. Just then, the group Leo had glanced at earlier began to stir. Emily's pulse danced along with the bands of tension snaking between them, a warning that time was in short supply. Sudden certainty gripped her. The catalyst for her transformation might not just lay in her choices but in confronting the veiled players of her story head-on. The path ahead demanded not just learning, it required action, but as she considered her next moves, a single, chilling thought passed through her mind. What if the only way to find her truth was to unearth even darker truths buried in the roots of her family's legacy? Would she keep pushing deeper into this tangled web where shadows loomed, or would she turn back, forever haunted by unanswered questions? The game had begun, but clarity remained elusive as the next puzzle piece hung tantalizingly out of reach. Emily stepped away from the cafe table, her heart racing as she scanned the scene around her. Leo had given her a taste of the darkness surrounding her family, a revelation that felt both electrifying and horrifying. The need for action was palpable. She could no longer afford to linger in the shadows. With Marco by her side, she took a deliberate step forward, embracing the weight of her intent. What's our first move? Marco's voice cut through the haze of her thoughts. There was unwavering support in his gaze, a reflection of her own resolve beginning to crystallize. She hesitated only briefly. We need information. If Leo's right, I need to identify those who might exploit our vulnerabilities. Her voice was steady, but inside, a storm of uncertainty brewed. Knowledge had become a weapon, and she needed to arm herself. They made their way to a nearby library, a quiet sanctuary where secrets were preserved in the quiet stacks. Emily dedicated herself to unearthing anything that could provide insight into the players in her family's periphery. The scent of aged paper and faint dust was intoxicating, fueling her urgency. She lost herself among historical accounts of her family, piecing together a narrative that had been historically withheld. The deeper she delved, the more connections she unveiled, alliances forged in shadows, betrayals glossed over by time. Each name echoed through the corridors of her family's past, each story layering over another, creating a compelling but dangerous tapestry. She scribbled notes, her handwriting a frantic scrawl as she connected dots, filled in gaps, and discerned patterns. Each revelation fed into a newfound understanding of her family's influence. Hours passed unnoticed until the librarian's soft interjection called her back to reality. "Miss, we're closing soon," she said gently, her voice a reminder of the world outside. Emily gathered her papers, determined to extend her exploration but recognizing the limits of time. "Thank you," she replied, her mind swirling with conclusions she couldn't yet articulate. Marco tapped her on the shoulder, drawing her focus before they exited. "Are you all right?" "You seem intense," he observed, concern furrowing his brow. "Intense is a good description," she admitted, running a hand through her hair, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "I need to confront the truth about my family, Marco. But the more I uncover, the more dangerous it becomes." Reluctantly, she also recognized that her relentless pursuit might lead her to unforeseen risks. The exhilaration of knowledge was mixed with trepidation. Her choices could ignite a fire that scorched everything in its path. It was in the stillness of the following moments that a revelation struck. What if she utilized her connections from the outside world, her own allies? There had to be others who had been touched by her family's dealings, people willing to share their insights and experiences. She recalled a fellow student from her community college who mentioned her family's past entanglements with the mob. Perhaps she could reach out. "Marco, I need to make some calls. Tonight, I'll reach out to some contacts. If my family's legacy is built on secrets, there must be those who can help unearth them," she concluded, a steely determination hardening within. "Just remember, Emily, each person you bring into this could bring their own agenda." Marco's warning lingered, heavy, as she nodded, absorbing the input. Later that evening, Emily found herself pacing her living room, phone in hand. She hesitated at each number, weighing the consequences carefully. Yet, the promise of insight thrummed through her veins, compelling her to take the leap. Just as she was about to dial, her phone buzzed a new notification. It was a message from Leo: "Meet me tomorrow. I have something important to discuss." The weight of his words threatened to unravel all she thought she knew, and her instinct screamed that she was about to confront more than just talk. Would this meeting challenge her resolve? Would it lead her deeper into the abyss of her family's legacy, or could it reveal the path she needed to conquer her own fears? As sleep eluded her that night, Emily faced the dawning day with one haunting question echoing in her mind: would the shadows of the past be her biggest hurdle, or the key to transforming her future? Emily awoke with the sun creeping through the curtains, illuminating the remnants of her restless night. The air hummed with anticipation as she stared at the phone resting beside her. Leo's message loomed large in her mind, intertwining with the chaotic thoughts of potential strategies and contacts she had begun to formulate. What awaited her in that meeting? She couldn't shake the idea that this could be a watershed moment for her understanding of her family's secrets and herself. After a quick breakfast that felt more like an afterthought, she threw on a simple outfit, purposefully practical yet still reflecting her emerging resolve. Each choice was a step toward her burgeoning self-awareness, a quiet promise to herself. She would not let fear dictate her choices. As she made her way to the designated meeting point, a nondescript diner on the outskirts of town, Emily's mind wandered back to the notes she had painstakingly gathered from the library. The lives intertwined with her family's dealings didn't just speak of deceit but hinted at deeper struggles, and perhaps, whisperings of redemption. But why did her family's shadows span so far and wide? The thought gnawed at her. Yet, she had a newfound determination. Her personal development hinged upon this confrontation, both with Leo and with the realities of her heritage. Walking into the diner, she took in the dim lighting, the clatter of plates, and the scent of strong coffee filling the air. Emily spotted Leo at a booth in the corner, his fingers wrapped tightly around a steaming cup. His presence was magnetic, a stark contrast to the secrets he might hold. "Thanks for coming," he said, his demeanor cool yet layered with unspoken tension. She could see the flicker of intensity behind his eyes, perhaps mirroring her own internal struggle. "Cut to the chase, Leo. What is so important?" The edge in her voice surprised her. It was born from a blend of impatience and vulnerability, a reminder that her courage was still a work in progress. I know what you've been digging for, Emily, he stated, his tone low, yet firm. Your family isn't just influential, they're dangerous. The weight of his words settled heavily between them. I have to face that, she admitted, her heart racing. I need to know what they're capable of. Knowledge is a double-edged sword. You have to be careful about who you trust, Leo cautioned, leaning forward. There are movements within your family that could threaten you. There are others, people in positions that may want to manipulate the truth for their own benefit. The layers of complexity he presented were dizzying, but they mirrored her own journey. This was no longer just about her family's legacy, it was about her survival, her own agency. As Leo began to unveil the hidden players operating in the shadows of her family's business, the pieces of the puzzle she had been constructing began to click together and reveal an even darker tableau than she had imagined. Leo painted a vivid picture of factions within her family, alliances forged not just by blood but by secrets and betrayal. The more he spoke, the more palpable the truth became. She was tangled in a web that could ensnare her at any moment. Yet, amid the rising dread, a flicker of empowerment ignited within her. She was not merely a victim, she had the capacity to reshape the narrative. Leo, if I can gather enough information from my own contacts, we can expose them, she proposed, her strategic mind racing ahead. A new plan was unfolding, an opportunity for action that could redefine her position. Be careful, you might be stepping into a fight where you don't know the rules, Leo replied, a note of caution in his voice, yet admiration flickered in his gaze. As the conversation flowed, Emily felt the boundaries of her former self stretching, reshaping into someone more resilient. She realized that her development hinged not only on knowledge but on the choices she was willing to make in the face of danger. The meeting drew to a close, and Leo's final words hung in the air like a warning bell. Don't forget, the truth you seek can also bring you peril. Are you ready to confront what you might find? With her heart pounding and her mind racing with possibilities, Emily left the diner with more than answers. She carried a growing resolve that wrapped around her like armor. But as she stepped outside, a new message pinged on her phone, a text from an unknown number. I know what you are looking for. Meet me at the old pier at midnight. Come alone. With that, the path ahead blurred with uncertainty and danger, further entwining her fate with the shadows she had begun to unravel. Would this choice draw her in deeper, or would it finally push her to the brink of liberation? Emily's heart raced as she read the message one more time, her fingers gripping the phone tightly. The unknown sender stirred a whirlwind of fear and curiosity inside her. A sense of foreboding washed over her. This could either be an opportunity or a trap. She stood still for a moment, the weight of her decisions pulsating in her chest. There was no turning back now. Not after everything Leo had revealed. Each secret, each danger etched deeper into her resolve. She quickly reviewed her options. It was time to take control no matter what lay ahead. With a sense of purpose, she made her way to the old pier. The familiar path soon turned foreign in the dimming light of dusk. Each step echoed with the promises of what she might discover or what she might lose. As she reached the pier, the sounds of the water murmured like whispers in the wind. The beams of the structure creaked underfoot, a reminder of precariousness that mirrored her mindset. Time felt suspended, tension hung thick in the air. Is somebody there? She called out, her voice sharper than she intended. The thought of being spied upon, of dark figures lurking just beyond her line of sight, sent a chill up her spine. Emily. The word was simple but haunting, carried from the shadows. A figure stepped forward, illuminated by the fading light, a young man, poised and intense, with an air that suggested he was familiar with secrets and subterfuge. Who are you? She demanded, pulling on every shred of composure she could muster. This was a moment meant for confrontation, not concession. I'm someone who wants to help. His voice was steady, but behind it lay the urgency of someone well aware of the stakes. I know about your family and what they've buried to maintain their power. The pieces of her family's puzzle tumbled in her mind as she stepped closer, drawn in by the gravity of his words. What do you know? There are factions at play that you can't see. You're in the middle of a battle that's been raging long before you were born, he replied, his eyes piercing through the dimness. But knowledge itself isn't enough. You need allies if you want to fight back. Emily's stomach twisted. She had thought herself prepared for this moment, but now the concept of allies felt foreign. Who can I trust? Leo warned me about missteps, she said, her voice faltering slightly. Trust is a luxury you may not have, he explained, pacing slightly, frustration evident in his body language. But you can't fight alone. There's a small group working against your family's corruption. They need someone with your insight, your position. I won't let myself be used as a pawn, she retorted, firming her stance, a flash of defiance igniting her spirit. I'm tired of being in the shadows. Then you must be willing to take risks, he pressed, his expression unwavering. Tonight is critical. If you join us, you could turn the tide. But you must decide quickly. There's someone watching, someone who knows you're here. The gravity of his last words resonated deeply within her. The urgency of the situation forced her to confront the fragile lines stretching between her family ties and her moral compass. The crossroads stood before her. Would she abandon the grip of her past, or risk it all to forge a path of her own? As doubt vied with determination, she felt the weight of her heritage pushing against her will. It was suffocating. But something inside her whispered of empowerment through knowledge and reclamation of her own narrative. Tell me what needs to be done, she said, her voice steadier now. As she leaned into the shadows surrounding her, the sense of potential mixed with danger electrified her veins. The young man's expression shifted subtly from caution to admiration. Let us work together and awaken the truths hidden in your family's past, he said, a plan beginning to form between them. But just as they were about to outline their strategy, a figure surged into the light. The night held dangers she had yet to understand fully, and someone was all too eager to interfere. Emily braced herself, every instinct raised as realization permeated her thoughts. This crossroads was forcing her toward an irrevocable choice, and she felt unprepared for the gravity of the unfolding drama. She was about to enter a world where the depths of betrayal and truth converged. Was she ready to confront the dark legacy waiting to ensnare her? The cold wind whipped through the old pier as Emily stood at the precipice of her destiny. The figure before her, whom she now recognized as one of the elusive adversaries, stepped into the light, a smirk curving on his lips. Instinctively, she reached for Marco's hand, gripping it tightly, drawing strength from the connection they had forged. Look what the tide brought in, a little girl trying to play with the big boys, the man taunted, his confidence oozing as he leaned casually against the pier's railing. Don't underestimate me, Emily challenged, her voice steady, the fear that had once stifled her now transformed into a fierce determination. She glanced at Marco. In that echoing silence between their thoughts, she could feel their past experiences fuse a bold flame within her, guiding her toward action rather than retreat. Your family calls the shots. They've kept you hidden away for a reason. The man's tone shifted, sharpening like a dagger. Why risk everything now? Emily took a step forward, releasing Marco's hand as she stood alone before this embodiment of her family's oppression. Because I will not let my life or Marco's life be dictated by shadows, she declared, each word resonating with conviction. She realized now that the storm they had weathered earlier had been foundational, the chaos they faced had forged the steel in her resolve. Such bravado from a girl whose every step is shadowed by her lineage, he sneered, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes, as if her newfound audacity rattled him. Lineage doesn't define my choices anymore, she continued. I choose to create my own legacy, one built on truth and honesty, not fear and manipulation. She could feel the energy shift, the confidence she exuded felt palpable in the thick air. Brave words. But ambition without backing can lead you to ruin, he replied, stepping closer. That's where you're wrong, Marco suddenly interjected, surprising Emily and herself. He had never been one to speak up, but perhaps it was the depth of their shared struggle that ignited an urgency within him. Emily has learned the truth about our world. We've faced danger together. She's ready for whatever game you're playing. The man's eyes narrowed, and he hesitated, considering their unity. You think you can face the full brunt of this family's power? You think your rebellion will go unpunished? Let it come. It's time for change, Emily shot back, her voice unwavering. Silence fell between them like a heavy curtain, but in that moment, the man seemed to reconsider. You're either brave or reckless. I suppose a mix of both might do well in your family's world. The unpredictable dance of their confrontation was turning, she sensed a crack in his facade. Isn't this what you really want from the shadows, the fire of the truth tearing down the walls of corruption? She urged, stepping closer, unrestrained by any prior fear. Every moment you linger in this game, you aid the very cycle that traps you. Do you want to play for someone else's benefit? Or take control for yourself? His jaw clenched, and for the first time, she saw flickers of doubt crossing his expression. You speak of rebellion, but no one gets out unscathed, he countered weakly, but Emily recognized that her words were puncturing his armor. You and your kind are all being manipulated. Maybe so. But I'm drawing the line here. She pointed towards the expanse of the water, where freedom beckoned through the shadows. We can either continue to be pawns or seize our identities. I choose the latter. A moment of tension unfolded, an unspoken agreement between rivals seeking the same end, though from opposite perspectives. Would he be her ally, or would he report back, igniting hostility that could undo them? Just as the air felt ripe with possibility, another figure emerged, a silhouette cutting sharply against the backdrop of the moonlit pier. You really think you can play both sides? The newcomer called out, sarcastic, stepping into the light, revealing himself as Leo. The weight of Emily's past collided with the intensity of her present. Options. Betrayal and potential coalesced like an impending storm. You're choosing the wrong game if you trust him, Leo warned, snatching her attention, and sending uncertainty rippling through her resolve. Am I? Emily countered, tired of being dictated by shadows and mandates. Maybe it's time for everyone to face the truth. This is bigger than just family. It's about us, where we go from here. Leo stepped closer, the air thickening as their choices lingered. In this world, trust must be earned. Your alliances can either save or doom you. The man smirked, eyes darting between them, pondering his next move. What will it be, then? A pact or enmity? Emily inhaled deeply. For the first time, she saw the potential embedded within the chaos, not just survival but an opportunity for transformation and liberation. You want to join me in this fight for autonomy, then let us change the game together. If not, then walk away and let the shadows consume you. As she proclaimed her vision, clarity surged within her. She had crossed the line where fear no longer controlled her choices. In that moment, she transformed from a girl trapped by her family's legacy into a powerful singular force, unafraid of her origin nor the dark bonds that sought to hold her back. And just like that, the world shifted again. The tides of uncertainty began to recede, replaced with the kind of confidence that arrives not from safety, but from embracing one's truth, a truth she had unearthed amidst the chaos of the past. Will this lead to ruin or victory? The man challenged, a flicker of admiration crossing his features. That depends on all of us, Emily replied, the affirmation feeling like a declaration of independence. And as the light faded ahead into darkness, Emily was no longer just navigating the shadows of the night but establishing her own trail, one that would resonate with others yearning for change. She had proven herself, not just to others but most importantly, to herself. With Marco and perhaps an unforeseen ally alongside her, the narrative was theirs to shape. They stood poised at the threshold of a new beginning, and as the waves crashed beneath them, Emily felt ready to confront whatever awaited, secure in the knowledge that she had chosen to forge her own path, one that promised growth, truth, and liberation. Now was the moment for action. Join us in celebrating Emily's transformation and resilience. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment below your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need a dose of inspiration. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.